Well, good evening, everybody. Grace and peace to you from our Lord Jesus Christ and all the saints here in my garage. Coming to you wearing my rubric shirt. Please don't ask me about rubric. I don't know anything about it. All I have is a t-shirt from the sales reps that were selling it to us. Anyway, I completely forgot to make a video this week. This is Saturday night. I'm going to upload this as soon as I'm done for tomorrow morning. So I am late. And I kept trying to think, all week I kept thinking, well, there's really nothing to film. There's really nothing going on. So, and I was racking my brain trying to think, well, what happened this week? And then, luckily what I do is my last boss, you may remember, beautiful boss, she used to have us do these weekly status reports. And when our new supervisor came in, this kind of fell by the wayside. But I keep doing them because I kind of want to look back and know what I did, especially when it comes to review time and they ask me, hey, well, what have you done this year? And I can go back and pull all these up and pull out my greatest hits basically and say, well, I've done this. So I grabbed this from last week. It is the weekly status report, week ending July 25th, 2025. So I'm just gonna read to you off what I did this week, so you'll know what happened. Let's see, as part of the wireless upgrade project, engineering continued installing APs on the second floor of the main hospital building. We did find one AP that was malfunctioning. We got complaints, which the CIO was kind of grumping at me about, but we got some complaints from the nurses that their Vocera badges weren't working all over the second floor. So naturally, the nursing supervisor was upset and the CIO was upset. So he told us to investigate. We did. Tariq said he'd go up there and he'd ask them what's going on. And turned out there was one corner of one section of the second floor of the hospital that truly did have bad coverage. It wasn't everywhere. It wasn't the entire second floor. It was one section of the second floor. And what we found out is there was one AP in the very back corner that when we looked on the status on the wireless controller, usually you'll see that they're up, they're delivering power. It'll tell you if it's high, medium, or low power setting. This didn't say high, medium, or low. It just said staging. So it was like it was still trying to set itself up. We rebooted it several times. We tried forcing the radios to come on manually, and the radios wouldn't come on. Sorry, there's a smell in my garage. I think it's all this gasoline coming from this thing. So if you see me moving my face around, it's because I can't really breathe too well in here. You know what? Hang on a second. Let me ventilate this place. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. I'm coming right back. That's better. Get a fresher breath of air. All right, yeah, open the garage here and let some of this gasoline fumes out. So what was I saying? Okay, yeah, so that one AP, we just couldn't get it to come up. So I told Tariq, or I asked Tariq, I didn't tell him. Well, why don't you just go get another AP that we've already set up and just replace it with that one. Let's bring it back. We'll see if we can power it up here. And if we can't, then you can call it into Extreme. So he can get some experience troubleshooting access points with Extreme. And so we brought it back, and it kind of sat on his desk for a day. And I said, have you gotten around to hooking that up? And he said, well, no, I haven't had time. I said, well, I'm just curious. I promise I won't fix it. I said, but I want to see what it's doing. So I took it back to my desk and plugged it in. Came right up. Didn't show staging, didn't show anything out of the ordinary, just came right up. Okay, So, yeah. So that happened. Anyway, once he replaced, when he initially replaced it, that took care of the coverage problem in that one back area, and then that was all good. So we did get some other reports of Vocera outages in the PACU. That's what everybody used to call the recovery room. Well, PACU is a post-anesthesia control unit? I don't know. But that's basically the recovery room. Once you've had surgery, they roll you into the PACU and post-anesthesia care unit. Can't remember what C stands for. They roll you in there and you kind of wait for you to wake up and monitor you and make sure you're going to wake up, that sort of thing. So the reports in there were due to engineering actually replacing the APs. So the nurses never connected the dots that, hey, if you take the wireless down and you replace it, it's going to be down for a minute while they actually do that. Anyway. All right, that's the update on the wireless project. What else did we do? So I got asked to connect an ILO port on a server that I had no idea where it was. I don't deal with servers. That's a Leo thing. But this particular server is part of a CT machine, and it is out in the radiology department, so it's not where Leo would normally go. It should have been connected by the product representatives, the engineers that installed it a year ago. Apparently they just figured out that they forgot to plug in their ILO connector. We plugged in their network connector, but not the ILO connector. So anyway, there are certain things, I guess, the server guys do with ILO ports that they can't do through the regular Windows port. So I get it. They can do like machine level stuff. So we got that plugged in, made them happy. Oh yeah, we had an emergency power test this week. It's not supposed to be till this week coming up, but we did it last week. And anyway, kind of surprised me. But as I was sitting there, and I have an engineering radio sitting on my desk, and I just have it tuned to their general channel. So I listen to them chatter about stuff all day long. And I heard on the radio that, yeah, they were in fact doing doing a power test, emergency power. And so I was like, okay, all right, well, I'll just monitor, see what goes down. And in fact, 2 switches did go down. One was in our NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, and the other was in a med-surg, just basically general hospital room area. And they were in our new wings that have been built, like, I guess they finished them about 4 or 5 years ago. They were both in the new wing. One was on the first floor, one was on the second floor. So they finally came back up, but I asked Tariq, I said, hey, you want to go check on those, make sure everything looks good on them? And so he went over there with Jose, my number one go-to guy in engineering. Jose knows where all the bodies are buried. I mean, that hospital would crumble without Jose. So Jose went over there with him to take a look at it. And so Tariq didn't know this, but Jose's known this because he's worked with me on this before. He looked at the back of the switches and he saw that so we got 2 redundant power supplies. One of the bank of power supplies, the entire bank was out in, I think, the NICU. And on the first floor, 1 power supply was out in 1 switch. We have 2 stacks of 4 switches in both areas, 2 separate stacks of 4. And 1 stack, all 4 switches lost, I think this power supply 1. It's whichever one's plugged into the normal hospital power. The ones that are plugged into the UPS didn't have a problem. And the reason we do that is so that if they are running on UPS, they'll run just a little bit longer. If we have both power supplies plugged into the UPS, they'll both be protected, but they won't run as long. So we leave one power supply plugged into the UPS, one power supply plugged into e-power at the hospital. That's just the way we do it. And yeah, the ones that were plugged into e-power are the ones that died. So we got 5 power supplies total that need to be replaced. So I asked Tariq, I said, I can call it in, but do you want practice calling this in? And he's like, oh yeah, I want to do that. And so I said, okay, get the serial numbers of those switches and go ahead and open a case, and then just work with them. They'll tell you what to do from there. So that's what he did. So yeah, I'm just kind of mentoring him on working with support this week. So yeah, they're going to create an RMA case, and they'll send him some new power supplies, and we'll just pop those in real quick. I also downgraded the firmware on a bunch of switches that were in non-hospital areas, like office areas. I had upgraded to the latest version of the firmware, and it turns out there is a bug in the latest version of the firmware for the exhaust switches. So I downgraded to the latest support recommended version. Is that so I don't know if I've ever said it before. I might have maybe mentioned it once. I am a licensed ham radio operator. Funny story behind that, but I won't go into that right now. And quarterly, our county has an emergency medical services ham radio drill. So it's basically, let's say that infrastructure is failing all across the county. How are we going to deliver messages to one another, especially in the healthcare sector? It's a countywide emergency. So what we have are these standard forms the hospital staff will fill out with. It's basically a hospital status. Here's what the status is. Is there anything? Do we have power? Do we have emergency plan in effect? Do we have, how many beds do we have? What kind? Just different questions about the status of the hospital. So it's a form they fill out, and then they'll have a ham radio network where there'll be one central control station, and then he'll poll each hospital. Hey, he'll ask you to deliver the messages, the status reports for your particular hospital. So we did that this week. I did it because there's supposed to be some ham radio operators within the emergency department, and also in our communications area, and we do have some, but they were unavailable, so I'm like the fallback guy. If they can't find somebody to do it, I'll do it. So I'll get the IT guy to do it. So yeah, we have 2 ham radio base stations. One's in our communications area, where all the the ladies that do the overhead page, the white zone is for loading and unloading only, those folks. And plus, if you call the hospital, that's the switchboard, you'll get them. And they'll tell you to move your illegally parked car and all that stuff. So they have a ham radio over there. And then in the radio room of the emergency room, it's called the emergency department, but everybody still calls it ER. There is a dedicated radio room in our emergency area. So ambulances call in when they're en route. We have a helipad, so when a helicopter is en route, they'll call in and give a status of the patient that's inbound, and let them know if it's a trauma, what's coming up, what's going to show up at our doorstep, right? They need to know. And have you ever seen the old show Emergency? The 2 firefighter paramedic guys, and they would always take their patients to Rampart General Hospital there in LA. And it was always that one nurse, Dixie McCall, they'd radio in, and she'd pick up the phone, and then she'd call for a doctor or whatever. It's basically the same idea. We've got an entire room in there that's dedicated just for that. There's a big map on the wall, big computer screen that shows where all the ambulances are, and where the helicopter is if it's en route. And there's also a ham radio in there, and that's where I went to do this ham radio thing. And after I was done doing this, I got to talk to a delightful nurse who had the most amazing accent. I loved her accent. Turns out she was from Cameroon. I said, really? What language do they speak in Cameroon? And she said, there are over 200 languages spoken in Cameroon. I said, oh, well, how do you all speak to each other? And she said, well, with either French or English. And she spoke all three, her native language that she grew up with, French and English. And oh, what an accent. Oh, I could just sit and listen to her read from the phone book and be happy. Anyway, very nice lady. Oh, what else did we do this week? Product support for Intermapper expired, so I'm trying to get purchasing to re-up our support. Intermapper is that software I use to map out and monitor the network. So yet another one of the glamorous jobs of a network admin, making sure your stuff is all, the heck was that sound? Make sure your contracts are up to date. And that's one that slipped through the cracks. Both my fault and purchasing's fault. And then I did help desk tickets that came in. I don't even list what they are. It's just that if I get one, I do it. They're usually, plug in a network cable. And a lot of the help desk tickets I've been getting, I've just been reassigning them to Tariq so that I can help him learn how to do, I don't want to call them the low-level things, but it's kind of like the more mundane day-to-day things that a network admin would do, like plugging in network cables, plugging it from a jack to a switch, calling support when something's broken, just things like that. Gonna just now start getting into showing him how the core switches are set up. We did that Tuesday as well. That wasn't written in here, but I did have a sit down with him and showed him how to create a layer 3 VLAN and all that. And I've already got a step-by-step document on how to do that. So I just walked him through me doing it once. And then I showed him where I document where I do it. I have a network changes document. Every change I make on the switch, every major change, if I change a VLAN on a port, I'm not going to document that. But if I'm adding a layer 3 VLAN and adding routes, I'm going to document that because that can potentially affect things. So I showed him where all that is. I said you can always use those old ones as a template. And then I showed him where the actual step-by-step document is, and then I walked him through it. So I said, so that's the main thing. In an emergency, you could probably do it. Oh, and then, last week I was on call, on standby, and I got called at 1 in the morning. Got woken up at 1 in the morning. The respiratory department said that results from iStat weren't flowing into Cerner. iStat is just I don't even know what iStat does. It's a way to report patient results, like respiratory rates or blood sugar, just all kinds of different metrics about the patient. It's a way they report those things into the EMR system, Cerner. And she said, yeah, the results aren't passing. I'm like, okay, has the lab been notified? She goes, well, I don't know. I said, okay, well, I don't do anything with iStat or servers. I said, that's the lab. You need to call the lab. She goes, oh, okay. Do you want to stay on hold while I do that? No. It's 1 in the morning. I want to go back to bed. So I said, just call the lab and tell them what you told me, and then ask them if they want me to do anything. So I said, all right, I'll stay up and wait for this. And while I was staying up and waiting for it, something in my brain reminded me, hey, the CIO had just sent out a set of instructions dealing with these iStat servers. And so I pulled them up to see what I was supposed to be doing, if anything. And I looked, and she's not supposed to call me. She's supposed to call the applications on-call support, not infrastructure. Applications. So, 1 in the morning, I was not real pleased. So anyway, she finally calls back. She goes, okay, the lab said they're going to take care of it. Great. So I said, okay, Raquel, well, good luck and good night. And then after I hung up, I sent her that thing, and I put in the email. I sent her that procedure, And I put in the email, you're supposed to call application support, not infrastructure, in the nicest possible way I could at, by that time, almost 2 a.m. And I still had to get up at 4:45 to go into work that day. I'm not going to miss being on call. So anyway, about 3 days later, she sends back an email. Oh, thank you. I hadn't seen this before. Well, the CIO had sent it to everybody. So anyway, that's the end of my report for this week. Oh, there's a second page. What's on the second page? I will be on vacation from October 14th through October 16th. That is all. And that really is all. So guys, that's all I got this week. If you like what you saw or heard, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. I did receive one prayer request from last week. I have it written down. I'm sorry, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I do have it written down. And I did pray for that gentleman. I believe it was his father. Anyway, I did pray for you. So anybody have any prayer requests, send them along. I don't want to mention them on the channel because, you know, even though they're in the comments and you can see them, I don't want to make them any more public than necessary. And I have published my email before on this channel, so if you do want to send in a private prayer request, you can do that as well at what is it? networkadminlife@pm.me, I believe, something like that. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. It's kind of late here. It's late Saturday night. I got to go to bed and get up early for church tomorrow. So God bless everybody. We'll see you all next week. Boop.